Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today I'm going to show you how to make some quick and easy birthday party invitations as well as a quick and easy birthday card. These are single layer cards, or also referred to as clean and simple cards. They're easy to make and they don't cost a lot of money. This video is brought to you by Wendy Cranford. She's an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. You can check out her website at loveandstampin.com. I'll have everything linked in the video description, and they just released their brand new holiday catalog, and there are some gorgeous items in there, but I happen to need some invitations at the moment, so that's what we're going to do today. We're going to start off with this cupcake invitation. Now, of course, you can adapt this design for any occasion you want, but birthday invitations are perfect for this design because it's so quick and easy to do. So the first thing I'm starting off with is a single piece of cardstock, and I'm using a heavyweight cardstock because I want to actually just do this as a postcard style. And I'm going to start by stamping the bottom of the cupcake. I'm going to use my largest area first. I like to start with the biggest area unless I'm using an ink so super duper light that I can't even see it. I just find it's a little bit easier to line things up this way when you're stamping with acrylic blocks, and that's how I prefer to stamp. So about an inch from the bottom of my 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch piece of paper, I'm stamping the bottom layer of the cupcake wrapper. Now I'm going to go with a slightly darker ink, and you can use any brand of dye-based ink you want. You could even use pigment ink or chalk ink too, but the nice thing about the dye ink is that it's transparent. So say you didn't have that many colors, you could actually stamp the same color on top of each other each time, and it would get progressively darker in each layer and still give you that three-dimensional look, whereas a pigment ink is more opaque and it would be hard to see that difference. And I was a little off on that, but you'll see how forgiving this stamp set is. Some layering stamp sets are very difficult to use because if you don't have them just right, they just don't look like what they're supposed to look like. I find with this cupcake, even if I have it quite a bit off, it still looks fantastic. And sometimes I think it looks better because it looks more homemade. So now I'm going to go with the cupcake top, and I'm stamping with a super light pink first. And you can mix and match brands, which I love because I have a lot of different brands. I really do like the Stampin' Up! Dye ink, but I have the large size pad, so I can't fit them all on my table when I'm working for a tutorial. So you can definitely use those. Now that's the base layer. So if you were doing like a vanilla cupcake and you had like a super light cream colored ink, that would be really hard to see. But since these layers are all pretty much the same size and they cover the whole cupcake area, you could stamp your darker ink first and work that way, and it wouldn't be a problem to do it. I think you'd be able to see where you're going just fine. So if you've been thinking about some of those layering stamps that are really intricate, I recommend starting with something like this, just because you can easily see your layers. It's very easy to do. And now I'm going in with more of like a ruby red color for this top layer. And again, if you only had one layer, just keep stamping that over and over again, each layer with that same ink, and you will get a subtle 3D effect. Now the candle on this is kind of long, which is great depending on what you're stamping. I don't want it to use the whole length of it, so I'm going to put a mask down here, and I cut this quite a while ago and I just saved it in my right in the DVD case that my stamp set comes in, and I'm just going to stick that right over there. I did have to add washi tape because my post-it stickiness wasn't that sticky anymore. Now this is one of the instances I'm going to show you about stamping the darker layer first. I want to use a really pale green for my light layer, and I just can't see it. It's too light for me to really see it well through my stamping block. So I'm going to start with my darker ink, and I'm going to stamp my first layer, and I'm actually going to bring it down a bit so that it's not going to be quite sticking out so much or quite so tall, because I want it more compact on my design. Then I can use my lighter ink on the bottom layer. So the layer I typically stamp first, I'm stamping second because it's so light it'd be really hard to see. So I just need to look through there and line it up, hopefully fairly good. I'm at an angle here, so it's a little tricky for me when I'm filming a video because I can't get my head right over the thing, but it's all right. And now I'm going to use orange for the little flame, and all of these stamps are in that one birthday I think it's called Birthday Cupcake. I'll have it linked below. It's all in that one set, so you don't have to go hunt all these things down. They're all there. I will be using a sentiment from another set just because I really like it. So now I'm going to remove my mask and save it because it'll come in handy again. And even though it's not perfect, I think it still looks really cute. And what I did was I just cut a mask. I cut an oval out of a piece of scrap paper because I wanted to keep this one layer and I wanted it to look interesting, so I made myself a mask. So I'm just going to position this mask so that it frames my cupcake, and again, a couple little pieces of washi tape to stick it down. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. And I'm going to take a stippling brush, and this is a color duster, but you could use any kind of hog hair brush that's got fluffy bristles. They're stiff, kind of like a men's shaving brush, but they spread out so you get a really soft look. And I'm using this to put a really light blush of color in the background. Love this technique. I use it a lot because you don't have to have a lot of supplies, and it's like you get an extra shade of ink, and it's really forgiving. I find it's a lot easier to deal with than the sponges a lot of times. Now I'm going to take this stamp, which is actually sprinkles, but I don't want to cover up any of that goodness there, so I'm using this sprinkle stamp as a background element, and I think it works really well because it kind of looks like confetti's being dropped. A piece of hair in there, and it's just such a pretty, probably a piece of, no, that's my hair, that's long. I was thinking I was going to blame the cat, but I guess I can't. But I just like it because it gives a little like kind of party vibe to it. And you can stamp it a couple times if you want a more subtle effect, like off stamp it once. It just builds a little more texture in there and almost looks like a pattern paper, which I really like. Now before I take that mask off, I save the inner part that I cut. I'm going to stick this mask right in here so I know I'll have it perfectly lined up. And I just have a piece of washi tape on there because I didn't have a post-it note big enough to cut this from. There we go. And now I'm going to put a stencil on top. So I do have to move a few things out of the way. And this stencil is by Stampin' Up. They have very affordable stencils that come in multi-packs that I love, and mine all usually look pretty cruddy. You're going to see what I'm going to use in a minute, a star one that's completely messy. But that means it's well loved and I actually use it, right? That's the way I look at it. I'm not making a museum to craft supplies in my house. This is a studio. I use my supplies. I'm not trying to make a museum here. So I do like to use sponges when I'm stenciling because I will get a crisper edge. The only thing I have to watch out for is that my colors are going to be a lot darker when I sponge versus when I use a brush. And since I know I'm going to want to stamp something on top of here, I'm making sure wherever I go in and I add my ink is away from where I'm going to be stamping, because I don't want you to have, or the person getting this invitation, I don't want them to have a hard time actually reading what it is. And I can go in and like wipe up some of the extra ink so I don't get a full load of ink on there, but I can still keep adding that tone on there. And I find that I get a crisper edge with a sponge because I'm pressing straight down, and also it doesn't tend to wiggle my stencil as much when I'm doing it that way, so I think that also gives me a nice crisp edge. So there we have that layer. Now the next layer I'm going to do will be with a stipple brush. Load that up with my pink ink, and I'm just going to brush that over just like I did with the yellow. It's going to give me that beautiful blush, and it's gonna make it look like it was a pink cardstock instead of a white. So when you're doing one layer, that white can be very, it can make you feel like wah 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 when you're looking at your card. But then you layer up some stencils and you put this these layers in here, and you put this texture and this pattern, and then you've got a wow instead of a wah wah. You've got a wow wow, you know, at least I think so. And I mean, let's be real, we're sending out invitations. It's not like they're going to be, and even if they are kept, they're gorgeous, but if they get pitched, you're not going to feel so bad. So now I'm going to remove my mask, and this is what we have so far. And I like to overlap my stamping. I think when you overlap elements, it looks a little more chic. So I am using a sentiment from, oh, I got to show you this stamp set. It is so stinking cute. And honestly, I wanted to do a drive-in party for my girl's birthday, because I thought, won't that be easy? Just pile up a bunch of kids in the truck and go take them to the drive-in. But they put their schedule out so late that I haven't been able to plan it, because I'm not sure if there'll be kids' movies out during that weekend. But I love this marquee, and I love these circusy marquee letters. So I will be throwing a drive-in party. If it's not a birthday party, I'm still going to throw one eventually, because I have to use a stamp set for an invitation. Isn't that bad? I'm planning my activities over what I have stamps to match. That's when you know you got a problem, guys. So I'm going to use the You Are and the Invited from this, because I just love this stamp set. I'm going to use the darkest layer from that ink. So it's a great idea, just like if you're watercolor painting, and I'm always telling you, if you watch my watercolor tutorials, don't grab new colors, use what you've already used. So that's what we're doing. We're going to take that dark layer, So otherwise you're going to have this crazy mess. If you're using 25 different ink colors, you're going to have a crazy mess. Sometimes I think it's better when you start out if you have a limited amount of supplies, because everything's going to go together so much better because you're not throwing everything but the kitchen sink at your card. And I have a tendency to do that, and then sometimes I'll be working for an hour on a card and I'm like, it's just not working. The more I do to it, the worse it looks, but you're in too deep at that point and you really want to come up with a really cute card. So yeah, that's the best thing. Stick to a limited palette, especially if you're trying to do invitations in a hurry. Now, if I'm making like a bunch of these, I wouldn't make one, set it aside, do another one. I would line them all up. I'd stamp all the bottom layer of the cupcake. I would do this all assembly line style. So this took me 10 minutes to show you how to make this. It would probably take me 20 minutes to make 10 of them, because if I did them assembly line style, you get through them so much quicker. So that's that, and I think I didn't do it on the other ones, but I think it might be really cute to add maybe a little bit of glitter to the candle flame here. And I'm kind of a klutz when it comes to like when it comes to doing wet glitter, like glue and glitter or stickles, because I always stick my hand in it. So this way, if I use a little glitter pen like this, that I can get that little hint and it's dry instantly and I don't have to worry about sticking my hand in it. So that's a really fun and cute invitation you can make. And now I'm going to show you how to make a really cute birthday card. The next card we're going to make is a clean and simple card, and it is a one-layer card, but I actually mounted that cardstock that I stamped on onto a yellow card base. You could totally just do this on a single folded card if you don't want to layer the white cardstock. Totally up to you. This is a set work that we're using. It's called Celebrate Today, and it's really versatile. You have the balloon that you can turn into a hot air balloon, or you can make it with a pretty kind of confetti tail. You could fill it with confetti. You can put polka dots on it. There's sentiments for baby, birthday, wedding, graduation, a lot of different things you can do here. And we're going to use several of these stamps to create today's card. Something else I wanted to make mention was that whenever I cut a mask or anything, I store it right with my kit. So the leftover masks that I had from the card we just did, I stuck them right in the DVD case that these stamps come in. I think it's an ingenious way to store them because you can put them right in a DVD case, and if you don't have one of those, you can find them at a thrift store very inexpensively. So the first thing we're going to do is stamp that really big balloon, but I want to do a different technique than what I did on this one because I thought it looked kind of flat. So to make it more three-dimensional, we're going to use two different colors to stamp with. I'm going to start off with a yellow, and I'm just going to make sure I give it a really good coat of color. And then I'm going to rock the edges with this orange. And I probably would have used colors a little closer together if I had them, but I think this will be cute too. So I'm just kind of tapping this along the edges. I try not to get any really harsh marks, but I just want to give it a little bit of shading. And this technique is called rock and roll. And I believe it is actually a Stampin' Up! Technique. And I want to stamp this a little off center. Actually quite a bit off center, because sometimes when you have things smack dab in the middle, your eyes kind of go to that and then they kind of get stuck there. So now we have a much more interesting balloon than we do right there, just because we have a little bit of shading on the edge. Next thing I'm going to do is put some confetti inside the balloon. I just think this is so cute, and even though I'm doing a hot air balloon, I just thought it's a nice layer, because whenever you can add patterns and texture, or visual patterns and texture to your flat cards, it really does help quite a bit. So you can keep that quick and easy vibe, but have it look a little more interesting. The next thing I want to do is layer on a banner, because banners are still pretty trendy. I know that trend's been on for a long time, but they're still quite trendy. You got to be careful with skinny stamps that you don't rock them when you stamp them, so maybe use your fingers as a stabilizer when you stamp, and try not to rock it, or use a smaller block so you're not tempted to want to wiggle it when you stick it down there. And I like to have colorful, cheerful cards. You could do this all tone on tone, but I really like having some bright primary colors, so I'm going to do the basket in a nice bright red. And these clear stamps make it really easy to line them up. And if it's not perfect, seriously, don't worry about it. Somebody's going to love this. I'm a little off. Big deal. It's still really cute. So the next thing we want to do is grab a stencil and add a little texture into the background. Now, see what I mean about the well-loved stencils? Yeah, you can't say this was never used. Nobody can accuse me of not using this stencil, right? So I'm going to put that right up there because I want more stars at the top, and I want concentrated color up at the top. So what I'm going to do is use this sponge and that same blue ink that I stamped the banner with, because you always want to keep reusing the same colors if you can. I mean, you don't want it to be boring, but you do want it to be interesting and have those layers. I do want to put a mask on that, so I'm going to take that one that I'd cut previously. I want to mask it so I don't accidentally get any blue on the balloon, because I can't really see through my stencil because I've used it on my jelly plate quite a bit, and it's made it kind of opaque because of the white paint or gesso or whatever I happened to use the last time. So I'm going to start up here with my darker color, kind of off the edge there, and let it fade, let those stars kind of fade out a bit as I come down. I don't have to worry about going around the balloon because I have masked that off, so that's a relief. So it makes my stamping a little bit more fun and relaxed and enjoyable, and this is our hobby, so it should be fun, relaxed, and enjoyable. I kind of wish I'd cleaned my stencil after the last time I jelly printed though, because it would be really handy if I could see what the heck was underneath there to see if I was on my paper or not. Live and learn, guys. And this is a Stampin' Up! Stencil, and I think it came with that same one the heart one came with. Okay, so now for my color, I want to get that color so I don't have the wah white cardstock. So I am going to, I'm going to dust on some of the same blue, and you can see that's a dark ink, but when you apply it with a stencil brush, or an ink, you call it ink sweeper, it has a lot of different names. This is a color duster is the brand that I'm using, but any sort of like hog brush with long bristles. It's a stiff bristle, but they're longer, so you don't get streaks. It just gives you such a softer look as opposed to doing it with a sponge. I'll show you a sponge, like if I was to ink the edge there. See, it's so much darker. When you do it with a sponge, it's a lot darker, or if you go direct to paper, it's even darker. Take your time with this. I got that little smudge there. It's not the end of the world, but I really would have liked to avoid that. Or if you want a super dark frame, then, you know, just do right direct to paper. And you could go over a stencil with your ink pad like that, but you have to be careful that sometimes doing direct to paper with your ink pad can shorten the life of it because it kind of tears at the felt top, and you don't want that to happen. Ink pads are an investment. That's why you buy the reinkers and you keep them going for a long time. So there, I think that's cute because I think that also kind of looks like the old-fashioned Man in the Moon guy there. So I want to stamp Happy Birthday on here, and I'm again going to use that same blue ink because I think tone on tone looks pretty chic, and it's also easy because I have the ink pad right out, so two great reasons to use it. I'm going to do Happy. And since when we started stenciling, we started our ink up there, so it got lighter as we went down. This is not going to compete. Those stars aren't going to compete with the word happy or birthday. And birthday is a very fine font. It's a fine cursive font, so I really want to make sure that that it's readable. So that's why we don't want a lot of pattern at the bottom. There we go, and then your eye can kind of see Happy Birthday and follow the balloon up off the corner of the paper. Now I'm just going to use some double-sided adhesive to stick this onto a card base. You could stick with the same color. Like I said, you could have just made this on a white card that's folded in half. That's totally fine, but since I had a bunch of these just plain card bases, I thought I would use them up and make this cute Happy Birthday card. I hope you found this class helpful today. I hope you give it a try because it's so fun to make your own invitations. Not only can it save you money, but you have something that's completely unique and personalized for your party, and I think your guests really appreciate it. If you want to find out more about any of these products that I used today, check out the video description. I will have links to everything I've used here and a link to my friend Wendy's website and her YouTube channel because she has some great free tutorials, and you know what? She even gives out these free, like with your order, you get free card kits and different little perks like that. So it's really fun to order from her because she goes the extra mile to make sure that you guys get the most out of your Stampin' Up! Products. And I've been using Stampin' Up! Since the 90s, so I can totally stand behind that brand and say, yeah, they're good. You're not going to regret it. Please give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. And until next time, happy crafting.